Okay. So
that's what I love about you, by the way, Joanne. You take notes with the stuff that you go, oh, profound thought. It's awesome.
Profound thought.
Virtual high five.
I don't know where I'm going to go from that. Let's see. I did write some things down ahead of time just in case I didn't know. Oh, I know what I know. I was saving one for last, but before we get to that, I wanted to hit with this one. You have a beautiful background. You have the ocean. That's not where you live. That's kind of close to you live, though. You kind of have that view. At what point did you decide that you are creating the life you love? I assume that's the life you love. This is what your final goal will be. When did you realize that you could actually do that? Like you could afford to do that, that whether you can afford it or not, but you could actually get there while you're trying to get there. You're living the life that you want.
Yeah. Yep. This was definitely the day I left Jersey, and you start wherever you can and then you move forward. So, got a place on the beach in Hawaii, and it's technically not on the beach because there's a highway that goes all the way around the island, but it was on the water, right? You saw the view from it. This is the closest I've been where now again, same thing like Hawaii, there's actually a street between this high rise and then the ocean. So it's similar to Hawaii, but then, it's actually 2 years ago that I finally got my place on Mission Beach. It was literally on the water. There was the boardwalk. So we called it our reality TV show. We didn't have a TV for like a couple months, but it was something that when I was single moving in, I'm like, I finally did it. And I did this myself. Like it was beyond exciting. And it was actually more exciting than when I went to Hawaii, even though that was exciting. This was something I felt like, I don't know if it was like a confidence thing or it's like, okay, you can do this yourself, Deb, right? You don't need that other people to help you do it with you. Like some things you can just do, just trust your instincts, trust your guide, trust your mission, trust your goal. But when I first made that move from Jersey and quitting that job, first what I did is I mapped out the math, and I started out, I think it was $18,500, and that was with a college education as a social worker. I quickly moved up to become a director, and then I quickly moved up that ladder within 2 years, and it was essentially number 2 in the company. And I was still making not more than 45,000, I think, and that was my cap. So I'm like, okay, so I did the math. I looked at what the hourly rate, and then by the way, Joanne, I was working at least 3 jobs, 40 to 80 to 100 and something hours. There was no life. I took my laptop home. I was working nonstop, and I thought, okay, what's the worst that could happen? So if I move to Hawaii and I start this, and by the way, this is an interesting thing that literally, I'm not even joking. I looked at best case scenario and then worst case scenario. And in worst case scenario was when I was selling everything and getting rid of everything to make the move, the one thing I didn't sell and that came with me to Hawaii was a 6-man tent. And I'm like, worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. Am I willing to just tent it for a while, but on the beach? Hey, like how bad can that be? But that's how committed I was to that. And I had learned something about burning the ships. Essentially, it's you come to shore, and instead of saying, oh, well, we can go back on the ship, it's like, nope, you burn the ship. This is where I am going. There's no looking back. So when I was selling my house in Jersey, and my dad was like, well, why not just rent it? Because there were a lot of people in the pharmaceutical industry that there was a big pharma plant, like not far up the road. And so a lot of executives were coming and spending good money to rent a house. And I was just like, because I want to burn the ship. I'm not coming back, Dad. Like, I think my parents were just hoping I would be like, oh, this is just a little fleeting thing. She's crazy, Debbie. She's going to come back. I don't think people believed that this Zoom thing, this virtual business conferencing thing was going to work. We called it teleconferencing at the time because it was like phone call teleconferences. But they're like, how can you meet with your clients in New York if you're in Hawaii? I'm like, it's called teleconferencing. And of course, they thought it was crazy, right? To do video, business via video. And yet a couple of years ago, that's all we were able to do, right? But that took 20 years. That took 20 years for the vision that I had, that I knew that was our future, to then finally come to fruition. But there was no turning back. And I decided that even if it meant a tent on the beach, it was still my best life. It was still, and then same thing when I got divorced and I moved into an apartment for the first time. I'm like, I have my freedom. I have my independence. I'm still by water. So I found like water's my happy place. So that's why we got the studio here. And it was basically because I got an offer on my house up the road in a crazy winter. And I was like, okay, I can't say no to that. But where do I go to live? And then found this place. But yeah, this is where I'm now studio, doing it from my studio, but like there'll be the next place and then there'll be the next place. And that's the one thing too, that I realized. Someone's like, oh, don't you ever miss Hawaii? You moved, you came back. I'm like, no, I'll always have it here. I'll always have it here. Same thing when I went to Europe. Those memories we'll have always with us. We don't have to look back. And I think that's the worst thing that we do to ourselves, whether it's regret, whether it's unforgiveness, whether it's like, oh, did I make the right decision? It's like, it doesn't matter. You keep moving forward, whether you fall, fail, make some mistakes, whatever. It's part of the journey. It's part of the learning process. So yeah, I'm not looking back, Joanne.
Absolutely. Burn that ship. I love that. I love that.